Before this video begins, we would like to thank Omar Elsayed for helping us in explaining this concept. There's always been a lot of speculation about how the capitalist system would bring itself down any day, and the falling rate of profit is the death knell of capitalism. Before we understand how it falls, we first need to understand what the rate of profit is. In Capital Volume 3, Marx termed the quote rate of profit as the ratio of profit to total capital invested in a given cycle of reproduction, or the proportion of value in any given commodity which constitutes profit for the capitalist. Marx put the formula of the rate of profit as follows: S over C plus V, in which S equals surplus value, the extra value extracted from the workers' labor, unpaid to the laborers themselves, C, constant capital, the capital paid for materials, and V, variable capital, the wages of the workers which quantitatively varies, as for the name variable. C plus V is the production cost of the commodity. In our everyday society, the rate of profit constantly changes. Changes in the rate of profit happen in a process called the cycle of reproduction. The cycle of reproduction is the process in which the capital invested in production transforms into money. The process repeats itself. Across the entirety of capitalist society, there exists only one average rate of profit. This is because economic competition equalizes profits amongst different industries. Because of their different characteristics and needs, different industries will have different organic compositions of capital, or C over V. The textile industry, for example, is very labor-intensive, requiring large amounts of variable capital and will produce quite a bit of surplus value. On the other hand, car manufacturing is not as labor-intensive. Capitalists who engage in it buy more constant capital and produce less surplus value. This raises a mind-boggling question. If the car industry will inevitably produce a lower profit, why even bother manufacturing Toyotas if you could live the high life sewing clothes for a greater return of surplus value? The answer to this question is simple: supply and demand. Capitalists, as we know, want surplus value. If they invested in industries with a lot of it, such as textiles, the demand for these products would fall short of their supply, thus selling for less. Conversely, in the industries with a lower organic composition of capital, such as car manufacturing, less investment would entail less of a product, henceforth demand would vastly outrank supply, and prices would go up. Despite their lower organic compositions, these industries would become extremely lucrative. Due to the law of supply and demand, balance between different industries and different terms of profit is inevitable. Thus, an average rate of profit is formed within capitalist society. As you can see, while various industries produce different amounts of surplus value due to differences in their capital, market competition ultimately equalizes the profits they receive. The general rate of profit is calculated using the following formula: S over V, or the rate of surplus value, also called the rate of exploitation, the ratio of surplus value produced compared to the labor spent in production. C over V, the organic composition of capital, the constant capital put into production divided by the variable capital necessary for labor, and then plus 1 for the error margin. To quote Marx, if it is further assumed that this gradual change in the composition of capital is not confined only to individual spheres of production, but rather that it occurs in more or less in all, or at least in the key spheres of production, so that it involves changes in the organic composition of the total capital of a certain society, then the gradual growth of constant capital in relation to variable capital must necessarily lead to a gradual fall in the general rate of profit, so long as the rate of surplus value, or the intensity of exploitation of labor by capital, remains the same. Das Kapital, Volume 3, Chapter 13. And to quote Adam Smith, it generally requires a greater stock to carry on any sort of trade in a great town than in a country village. The great stocks employed in every branch of trade, and in the number of rich competitors, generally reduce the general rate of profit in the former below what it is in the latter. But the wages of labor are generally higher in a great town than in a country village. In a thriving town, the people who have great stocks to employ frequently cannot get the number of workmen they want, and therefore bid against one another, in order to get as many as they can, which raises the price of labor and lowers the profits of stock. In the remote parts of the country, there is frequently not enough stock sufficient to employ all the people, who therefore bid against each other in order to get employment, which lowers the wages of labor and raises the profit of stock. The Wealth of Nations, Chapter 9. In a simpler language, when the capitalists replace the workers with more productive forces such as machines, this allows the capitalists to cut costs and temporarily make more profits for themselves in the short term. However, in the long run, other capitalists will adopt these same measures, which will raise the organic composition of capital across all societies and decrease the general rate of profit. The tendency in which the capitalists replace the workers with more productive forces is real. It is called the tendency of organic composition to rise. The higher the rate of exploitation is, the more profit there is. As a result, the capitalists themselves were usually trying to find ways to increase the production power to produce more profit. The formula is the following: C over V, in which C rises, V will fall. For example, The capitalists spend $3 for materials and pay their workers $2 in wages. 3 over 2 equals $1.50, so 1.5 is the ratio of exploitation. It is the surplus value the workers give to the capitalists, essentially for free. However, after the machines are introduced to the capitalists, the condition in the factory changes. Hence, the capitalists spend $4 for materials while paying their workers only $1, since they do not need the workers anymore. We have the following equation: 4 divided by 1 equals $4. Assuming that this is somehow enough for the workers to survive, the law clearly shows that the more constant capital increases, the less the workers are able to buy the products for themselves. The workers at this point can only buy one of the products each month, and the other products are wasted. Due to the fact that the organic composition of capital has a tendency to rise, and the workers' wages necessarily go into the opposite direction, the cycle of reproduction is twisted. Now, the amount of capital spent in production is higher than the profit generated. The capitalists themselves inevitably lose profit, since the more they spend on their dying production, the less wealth they have. To quote Marx, this does not mean to say that the rate of profit may not fall temporarily for other reasons, but proceeding from the nature of the capitalist mode of production, it is thereby proved a logical necessity that in its development the general average rate of surplus value must express itself in the general falling rate of profit. Das Kapital 3, Chapter 13. Marx was saying that not only the rate of profit, which could be seen as a temporary stage, but also the general rate of profit, which is the average stage, will fall. Here Marx introduces a new term for us to analyze: the average general rate of surplus value. The general rate of surplus value can be calculated using the same formula as the rate of exploitation, S over V. The relation between the general surplus value and the organic composition of capital, hence, is contradictory to one another. The following formula demonstrates this clearly. When V increases, S over V will decrease, thus lowering the rate of profit. However, when S increases, S over V will increase, thus increasing the rate of profit. Assuming C over V does not change, the capitalists only need to keep S over V at a specific point to maintain the rate of profit. However, naturally, C over V has to increase. There can be various reasons why C over V increases. The capitalists may replace workers with machines, causing wages to stagnate, or simply lower V out of motives. C over V naturally increases. However, generally, the rise in C over V and the falling of V leads to the rate of profit to fall. Therefore, generally, the rate of profit is cursed to fall by its own existence. Hence, we can see in the chart above that the rate of profit, despite some slight increases during wars, has a tendency overall to go down, and no real hope to go up in the long run. The falling of the rate of profit renders capitalism moot. Crises have become much harder to resolve than 100 years ago. This poses a huge threat to many families and individuals. When the rate of profit falls closer to zero, crises will happen much more constantly and deals much deeper impacts on the economy. Life will become full of miseries, and even the most wealthy bourgeoisie, one day, will begin to starve. At this point, the abolition of capitalism seems inevitable.
Let us take the United States of America as an example of this. In the U.S. since 1945, or the golden age of the nation, there has been a decline in the rate of profit, and that was clearly due to the rise of the organic composition of capital. The profitability even rose in the 1990s, but since then, the U.S. rate of profit has been falling and static. About 2010 to 2012, profits fell again, resulting in a crisis that is looming once again on the horizon. This shows the decline of the rate of profit in America was split into 4 phases. 1. The post-war, quote, golden age of profitability. 2. Crisis in the 1970s and the crisis between 1982 to 1982. And 3. The slight recovery of neoliberalism. And 4. This current stage of constant fall and decline. The rate of profit in 2015 is lower than that in 2012, lower than that in 2006, and lower than that in 1997. So the U.S. is in a constant state of decline, which proves Marx right. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please click over to our channel and potentially subscribe. If you would like to communicate more with us, please join our Discord server or check out our website. Click the link in our About page on the channel.